Chapter 4 Lost in the Woods. Oh, there was a bison there. The heart of the forest. The morning smelled of safety, fur, earth and the forest. I opened my eyes and saw other people cuddling up to me, their muzzles resting on their paws as they slept. Gentle snoring filled the warm space under the low-hanging branches of an old spruce tree. Stepping over the sleeping forms, I made my way outside. Alone hiding in the tall grass, I sniffed around. The sky was bright and the forest around me was dark and full of interesting smells. High in the trees, birds yelled about status, sex and violence. Something wasn't right. My brain wasn't working as it should. The smells were too strong. The grass was too tall. There was a quality I couldn't recall that was missing from the view in front of my eyes. A creature stirred in bushes nearby, a tall dark silhouette, a strangely familiar smell. I tensed up and watched the human as they looked around. "Maya, there you are," they said when they noticed me. It was time to get out of there. I spasmed. Suddenly a feeling like cramp or a spasm surged through me and everything changed. I hit the ground with my bare ass, colors exploded, the morning breeze suddenly became cold and I shivered. Confused, I looked at the person approaching me. "You look cold." Cornel smirked and threw me a bundle of clothes. "You'd better not change for a while. They won't survive it. Not until you learn the right, at least." I snatched the bundle and started pulling the clothes on. Sneakers, loose-fitting jeans, a hoodie with a unicorn. They fit perfectly. I thought about the previous night when I was raging through the forest, about how differently I experienced the world through the wolf's senses, and about the discomfort and confusion of changing shape. So, there was no denying it. I was no longer human. I could use a phone and a wallet. I remember having them on me yesterday. I laughed bitterly. Before I met you all. "You can track them down. Your sense of smell will be better than it was before, but later. Now we need to talk." We just stood there for a moment, comfortable in silence. I was wondering how one usually learned that they were a werewolf. "So," I said, "how did you become a werewolf?" "I was born a werewolf, it seems," he answered. "How did you learn you were a werewolf?" I asked again. "Oh, that. I was serving in Afghanistan. There was an ambush. Stuff happened." "I'm sorry," I said. "It must have been hard." "It was," he sighed. "They sent me home with PTSD, and once home I got found by others. They needed someone who knew how to fight." "Why?" I asked. "We were the real eco-terrorists back then, my pack and I. But I realized that violence only breeds more violence, and it's not the way I want to follow." "It doesn't make any sense." It suddenly struck me. "How come nobody knows werewolves exist?" "We protect the veil," was the answer. "It's easy to convince humans that supernatural doesn't exist. They already want to believe that, and the delirium helps." "You mean delirium as in the medical condition?" I asked, remembering something that I'd read about acute confusional states. "You'll have to ask Pat for that, but the gist of it is that humans are incapable of remembering that they saw a Kranos." He laughed. "They panic, turn away, and instantly forget, every time." And then I realized something important. At some point, the rest of the party had awoken and joined us. The clearing was full of wolves. Fuck. Fight or flight. The wolves were closing in on me, but they weren't really wolves, were they? They were werewolves like me. Hiding the bodies. The headless body was heavy. They said that, as my first kill, it was my burden. It was my duty to take it to the barrows. Did you not kill him? I got my shit together, lifted the corpse and threw it over my shoulder. "You have to balance the death you cause with your achievements." Cornel looked me in the eyes. That is the path of the Garo. He accompanied me, carrying the severed head in a bag. The others stayed behind, covering the tracks. I didn't want to talk, or to think for that matter. Not about the person I was carrying, or rather trying to carry. It was just a thing. I needed to transport it from point A to point B. That was it. No willpower anymore. I kept dragging the body, but the burden was too much to bear. I was tired and hurt, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I looked at the body and I really wanted to say something, but I choked on my words. I curled up into a ball with my arms around my head. I can't, I said, and then it was the only thing I could say, louder and louder, until it became a shriek. I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't! Cornel sighed and kneeled beside me. You're a werewolf, Gaia's soldier. There's nothing you can't do. Get up, we have a world to save, and you have a legacy to fulfill and a debt to pay. I took a deep breath. He was right. I was here for a reason, and I had things to do. I tried, really, but I couldn't. It was as frustrating as trying to take a shit when you're constipated. It doesn't work, I said, frustrated. Why doesn't it work? Cornel looked me up and down, not surprised at all, and sighed. Sorry about this. What? About what? The slap to my face was all the answer I needed. I changed. Choose your form. Glabro is strong enough to lift heavy things without breaking a sweat and intimidate. Krynos is a war form, a ruthless killing machine. There's nothing subtle about it. Hispo is a monstrous wolf, smart, fast, heavy, and absolutely scary. Lupus is the wolf form, a majestic animal with all its advantages and limitations. Looks great on camera. The pain was stronger than I ever imagined. I felt my muscles spasm as they rearranged themselves. My jaw cracked and my mouth filled with blood. I clenched my fists and claws drove into my palms. I screamed. When I rose, panting and sweaty, I was more than human. I was Glabro, wolfish, strong, scary. The change hurt more than I expected. The world shifted. Not much, but enough. I felt my teeth get sharper and muscles stronger. I picked up the body. It was a lot lighter. As we made our way through the forest, I realized we weren't alone. Somehow I knew what I'd see before I even saw it. A white weasel and a dark grey wolf. Ah, my companion smiled. I see you've noticed our patterns. Yeah, we know each other, I said, remembering my dream. We sort of met the other night. The two animals stopped in front of me in the middle of the path. We came here to teach the cub, said the wolf. She smelled of ash and tears. I couldn't believe what I saw. It made no sense. I felt as if my brain was short-circuiting, trying to interpret signals not meant for human senses. When I turned my eyes away from the weasel, it flickered, as if it was just a projection on a broken screen. One moment, an animal. A moment later, just an idea. When it talked, the air smelled of electric discharge, and I felt like the words displayed directly into my mind. But hallucinations or not, they just wouldn't leave me alone. The weasel circled me, and before I knew it, I could feel small claws on my leg, then on my back, and then on my arm. It smelled of musk and electricity, and then it bit my ear. Ow! I shouted. Why would you do that? To see how you react, obviously. The weasel's electronic voice echoed in my head. Enough! The wolf growled. Or at least that was what my brain decided to hear. In the beginning there was Gaia, aka Mother Earth, and she gave birth to a mighty breed of warriors. The weasel began. It sounded electronical, like a teenager reading a Wikipedia page over a voice chat. They were called Garo, that's werewolves in werewolfish, and their sole purpose was to protect Gaia. They failed, wailed the wolf. I looked to the weasel for advice. Why did they fail? When time began, Gaia released three primal forces upon the earth. The Weaver, the Wild, and the Worm. The weasel continued. The world was the untamed force of life and creation. The cold, ruthless Weaver gave structure to the world, and the Worm destroyed what needed to be destroyed, creating balance. Wait, what? Let's go with that. So, were werewolves creatures of the world? I asked. An untamed force of life? They were Gaia's children, the wolf snarled, born to herd and contain humans. I can see that something went wrong, I smiled wryly. The Weaver grew too ambitious and trapped the worm within its lifeless web, the weasel answered. Confined and denied, the worm went slowly insane. Now Gaia is dying, choked by the Weaver and eaten alive by the worm, wailed the wolf. And the wild is not the one you should fight, she snarled. You were born to protect it. Then it turned and led the way. It took us to the barrows. It didn't look much different than other parts of the forest until you noticed the mounds, that is. There was something about the flattened hills that drew my full attention. A memory stirred in my mind. No, it wasn't a memory. It was a feeling anchored in my chest, akin to the taste of ash in my mouth and the smell of smoke. Longing, sadness, resignation. But there was more. A sense of sacredness. It filled me with a calm excitement, and when I closed my eyes, I saw a fire burning in the darkness. Cornell kneeled near one of the mounds, put his hand on it, and whispered a few words. I saw the ground open slowly, like a mouth in the earth. I sighed. Let's do this. We put the body in the hole. We took the severed head and the body I'd wrapped up in sheets and put them in the hole. It closed slowly, and I could swear I heard the trees nearby sigh in anticipation. The wolf howled, and I could hear the hair on my hands rise. Welcome to your new life, the talking white weasel grinned. We have something else to show you. Alright, what have you got to show me? Ooh, place of power, wolves den, or the barrows, the past, your family. You're a cub, so you have special privileges, said the weasel. Pushcha will grant you a vision. You must see to understand, said the wolf. Think carefully before you choose what to see. I mean, everything in our goals basically says find out about your past. So I guess that's what we're doing. The tangled paths. It was hard to find the barrows, although I knew where they were. When I looked behind me, the path had disappeared. I felt the Pushcha playing with me, twisting paths, blocking my way with bushes and dead trees, and then suddenly opening a new path that was straight and full of sunshine. Determined, I pushed on. Since the change, I had become acutely aware of how my body worked, and I remembered what humans were good at. Running. Stubborn, relentless, long-distance running. Not as fast as a deer, not as nimble as a wolf, but steady and without rest. So I ran. And then I was there, the barrows. I climbed the nearest hill. When I was at the top, I stumbled on something. A shape in the grass, a skull watching me from its bleached eye sockets. I touched it. The buried past. There is a swirl. It starts deep within me, and then it expands. Everything is in motion, and there is no center anymore. There's a village in a forest, and there's the howl of a wolf. People stop and look around, frightened. The howl is like a keen. The houses are mere huts. There's almost nothing that protects the people from the forest. Their clothes are rags, their feet are bare, their hair and long beards are unkempt. There are wolf cubs, and then there is blood. And the howling begins, the mournful, blood-curdling keen of a mother who has lost her children. Watch, whispers the voice in my head. Watch and remember. But I cannot just stand by and watch. I want to act. I'm just a cub, but I'm smart, and I lead the blood-covered humans deeper into the forest. The forest wakes up, erupts with rage, and powerful furred bodies surge through the trees toward the village. The humans try to escape, they scream and beg for mercy. They try to protect themselves with fire. The Garo rise up, their talons red with blood, their eyes glazed with fury, and the fire is yanked from the hands of the villagers. The houses start to burn. The keening turns into a howl of joy. The Garo have my eyes, my face, they are my family. I am the blood of their blood. I am part of the story from the very beginning. And I do it again. The humans return, they rebuild the village, this time stronger and better protected. The keening begins once more. Then we, the Garo, come down on them like wolves in the fold. And again. New villages, new fires, more blood. I do not want to do this anymore. But the keening begins again. My heart fills with grief and rage and villages burn. Until one day there is only one Garo left in the family. And he slays his own kindred in the fit of his first rage. He is young, but I recognize someone in him. An old man I know. He used to tell me stories about the forest before my mother took me away. I stay there and I watch, but I can't move. My throat burns, my stomach is in knots. I want to scream, but I have no mouth. I feel the fire, I smell the blood. I see the large ash-grey wolf looking straight at me. Her eyes are golden, she weeps. "It is in your blood," she says to me. "It is your duty, it is you. Come with me, child, be my fangs and claws. There is no one else to be my cub. Come to me, child. I will nurse you, and I will lick your wounds. We will kill together, we will feast, and we will be merry. The forest will grow." I looked at her, and perhaps for the first time I saw her for who she was. Her pelt was marred with fire. Her eyes were smoke and embers. Ash was falling from her heaving flanks. She looked old, ancient, sad and alone. She was one of the wolves from my vision, watching my grandfather from the darkness, waiting for the village to burn. But she was more than that. She was more than one wolf, but a combined memory of all wolves who lost their cubs, their kin, their brothers and sisters, since humans came to the Pusha. At least that was what I thought when I looked at her. The wolf mother looked back at me, and something in her eyes made me realize that she was helping my family for generations, and that my family used to serve her. "Join me," she pleaded. "Only you can understand me. Only you." Alright. I went to her and she accepted me. And I accepted myself. I finally understood who I was. Darkness fell again, and the bloody tide was loose upon the world. Darkness. One of us. A lone howl pierced the silence like a single ray of moonlight in the darkness. Then there was another one, and then another, and then another. A choir of voices, triumphant and joyful. When I opened my eyes, I was in a clearing. Around me there were wolves, huge, monstrous wolves, howling at the moon. In a moment of bittersweet reflection, I understood that my old life was over. Maya, the student, was a part of the past. My present, my future, was now forever linked to what happened in the forest. "Well, hello there." Cornel smiled at me. "And welcome to the Sept." I just listened. I realized that my survival depended on learning very quickly, so I just nodded and listened. "For a werewolf, the pack is family," Cornel explained, "and an alliance of packs united in a common goal is a set." I realized that there must be at least 2 packs here. A great grey-eyed wolf changed into Cornell. Soon Pat and Kim joined him. "We had a winter weasel pack," said Kim. A white shadow settled on Pat's shoulder. I smelled musk and electricity. 3 of the monstrous wolves changed. Olga and Lisa stood up human-looking again, their clothes rumpled. A yellow-eyed wolf by their side turned out to be Daniel. "We are the pack of the Morning Wolf, Mother," said Olga. They smelled of ash and tears, and for a moment I saw the wolf spirit among them. "We're all Gaia's soldiers," said Cornell, "in that we have no choice, but we can choose whom we fight alongside." "Is this war a necessity?" I asked. "It doesn't exactly sound safe." "It's not, but if the war wins, we'll all die anyway," Olga shrugged. The name of the enemy reeked of decay and burning oil. "War's not safe unless you know the trick," Pat smiled. "The trick is to make the enemies die first." I have so many questions, I shook my head. "Why did I hear the moon whispering to me?" I asked. "Luna gave us rage. That is why she's important," Olga said. "And that is why you'll never be able to touch silver again." "You're from all over Europe," I noticed. "Is this like a standard for a sept?" I didn't even know if that was a stupid question or a smart one. I looked at Cornell. "It's far from the standard, but desperate times make strange bedfellows." He smiled sadly. "Normally a sept is dominated by one tribe, maybe 2. "There are at least a dozen tribes," Daniel interrupted. "And I hope, Maya, that you will choose yours wisely." "What about the spirits?" I asked. "How does that work?" "The world casts a shadow and we call it the Umbra," said Lisa. "And in the shadow, every living creature, every emotion and idea, every important object exists as a spirit. That's all you need to know at the moment." "Do I have to choose a pack?" I asked, just to make sure. "No Garo can survive on their own," Cornell said with sympathy. "Your old human life is over, but we will never abandon you." "So, if I got this all right, I've been conscripted into an ancient war against the worm," I said slowly, trying to put it all together. "And the moon gave me rage as a weapon, but I must avoid silver. And there's a whole secret world of spirits," I continued. "And I have to join a pack and choose a tribe." "Exactly," Lisa nodded. "As for the tribe, there are 2 people who could mentor you now. Olga is from the Black Furies, an ancient tribe of women warriors, and Colonel is from the Children of Gaia. There's more peace and harmony, Guy." The Shadow of Fenris. "Hey, what about my family's tribe?" I asked. Lisa winced, Daniel sighed, Olga shook her head. What's the matter?" I asked again. "Your ancestors were the Gats of Fenris, and no one here wants to have anything to do with that tribe," Cornell answered. "They stand against everything we believe in." "Does that mean that my blood is tainted?" I asked. "Tribe is not always a birthright, sometimes it's a choice," Cornell said. "So choose wisely." "Cats of Fenris are the most radical Garo supremacists that ever marred the face of Earth," Kim scoffed. "Like legit fascist werewolves. Some of them literally worked for Hitler." "Thank you for telling me," I said. "I had the right to learn about where I came from." For a moment we all were silent. I needed to learn more about the tribes and find an option that would really resonate with who I was. Pat was a glasswalker, and her tribe was finding its niche in cutting-edge technological cityscapes among the strands of the weaver's net. It sounded intriguing. We talked for a while. "So, you were basically a city dweller?" I observed. "All glasswalkers are. It's a natural habitat. I feel quite out of place in the forest." "Why?" I couldn't understand. "The pushchair is our home." "It may be your home," she said, and suddenly I realized we had less in common than I thought. "I'm more of a city girl," she added. "We use the weaver to fight the worm. The forest is not the weaver's domain. And I happen to be quite fond of humanity. They have great potential." How did you get Winter Weasel to be a patron? I was curious. I caught it, said Pat. Or rather, I made sure it would have more to eat with me than alone. That's how you catch weasels. But it is a forest spirit, isn't it? I think it's a weasel, so it gets accustomed to live where there's food, and right now it's the city. It hunts electricity spirits these days and feasts on them. I wouldn't take you for a werewolf, you know, I said to Pat. She snorted. Why? Because you look mostly harmless, I admitted. She shrugged. I am, and I didn't expect to turn out a werewolf either. I was a student happy with my tablet and coding, and then boom, I was a Garo. How did you meet Cornell? I was curious. I was in his first pack. We were both hanging out with the hacktivists crowd back then when things went south and he disappeared. I found him. You said that things went south, I pressed on. What happened exactly? Our pack was killed strictly because we were following Cornell's plan, said Pat. And yet you're still following him? I couldn't believe my ears. We've both learned a lot, she said, and we have a good working relationship. She sighed. You know, he is stunning. He makes a great impression. The 1st, the 5th, the 10th as well, but he's not a leader, if you know what I mean. I didn't know how to answer. Well, a true leader puts his pack first and himself second, and Cornell makes great first impressions. Finally I stopped asking. I had to think over what I'd learned. But I didn't want to talk anymore. No more spending willpower. And I don't want to talk to Kim. I was too exhausted to bug them with personal questions. One thing is bugging me, I said. Why are there so many of you here? Suddenly everyone in Białowieża is a werewolf or what? You know nothing, cop, Olga laughed bitterly. A mere century ago there were dozens of packs in these forests. But none of the old guard survived the 90s, Lisa shook her head. We had to start from scratch. Until you showed up, there were only 6 of us, and the 3 of us not even local, Cornell pointed out. 2 packs too small for their own good. Anyway, before you're admitted to a tribe, you need to prove yourself. Prove myself? I was shocked. Hadn't I proven myself enough already? A rite of passage. You went through your first change, Pat said. She was leaning on a tree nearby. And you know everything you need to know at the moment, but you have to go through the rite of passage. Daniel rubbed against my leg, excited. A vision guest. Kim winked at me. And since we don't have time for tests, we need you to solve a real problem. Olga stepped in. Namely, we want you to find a way of ending this logging problem, Connell said gently. So, how would you like to do it? They all looked at me in anticipation. I took my time, overwhelmed by everything that happened. My old self was gone, replaced by a shape-shifting eco-warrior. But deep down, I was still the same person with the same ideas and ideals. I knew what to do. We should frame the loggers. We need to frame the loggers, I decided, and then use the leverage to bring down the whole operation. You're all blind and ignore our most powerful ally, Lisa rolled her eyes. There are many ancient spirits in the Pusha, and we should talk to them. I'll lure the loggers to a protected area and record what they're doing, I continued. When it hits the internet, the authorities will have to ban the logging. Pat grinned. I know, exactly the place you need. Daniel beamed. Spoken like a true ragabash. You were born under a new moon, weren't you, Maya? I looked at him surprised. How did he know? Mom always told me that when she gave birth to me, the night was so dark that she was afraid something had happened to the moon and stars, and that we were alone with the dark sky. I nodded. You're right. How did you know? Garo born under the new moon are tricksters and questioners, said Pat. Just like you and me. We're the most cunning of them all, she winked. And our path is the perfect mix of glory, honor and wisdom. Your place in the werewolf society will be determined by your renown. You can earn glory through defeating mighty enemies and succeeding at dangerous quests. You can earn honor by following your moral imperative and upholding the laws of the Garo. You can earn wisdom by acting efficiently and thinking well before you act. Your renown will change as you play, contributing to Maya's legend among the Garo. No pressure at all. I felt overwhelmed. Olga must have sensed my confusion.
Come on, we have a lot to discuss, she patted my shoulder. And we have to find your phone and wallet.
So I followed her. I had to tie up loose ends in my old life. Back to the beginning. I'm sitting on a bus. The sun streaming through the windows is making it hard to see. The narrow road cuts through a dense old forest. My mind wanders. I remember doing something important, walking among the trees, looking for something. Losing something I loved, gaining something unwanted. But then, I'm fully awake and the memories scatter away.
We're almost there, says Anya. I did some searching.
She looks at me from over her phone.
And this place is amazing. The last primordial forest in Europe.
Oh, the hell is that?
I know, right?
I smile. I'm not able to finish. I start to cough. My throat is sore. My lungs hurt. Anya, I turn to her.
Should we help her?
She asks, looking at something she's clutching to her chest. It is Bartek's severed head. Let her die, it answers in a raspy voice. She had it coming. I feel something ashen and dry in my mouth, and then it starts to move. Spiders. I spit it out and see thousands of small spiders leaving my mouth. Threads of silk cover me, the seat and everything around us. I trash at the window, but a few seconds later I'm bound in a cobweb cocoon. I hear a hiss, then slowly a long dark thin shape comes out of Bartek's mouth. A black snake that reeks of rotten meat, acid and oil.
Don't fight, Maya. You're already mine, it says, just like your grandpa.
And then it kisses me.